Hello, welcome to Phantom Homicide, then the deep dive into the trail of terror left by Peter Manuel.
It really is a name that, even now, decades later, sends a chill down your spine in Scotland. Peter Thomas Anthony Manuel.
Known, of course, by that unforgettable, truly terrifying nickname, the Beast of Birkenshaw.
Yeah, and that nickname, it really sums up the horror. We're diving into his life, his crimes. This man, Peter Manuel,
We are, and we're looking at this incredibly intense but thankfully short period, really, between 1956 and his arrest in early 58.
is 2 years. But the damage, immense across Lanarkshire, southern Scotland. He created this wave of terror.
And it's historically significant, too, isn't it? Convicted for 7 murders, though, suspected of more.
Definitely suspected of more.
Yeah.
And he became the third to last man hanged in Scotland. A real historical marker.
So when we say deep dive, we mean really getting under the surface here. It's not just about the list of crimes, horrific as they are.
Exactly. We need to explore the psychology. This guy was driven by this chilling narcissism and an audacity that was just unheard of.
Especially for the time, right? We need to paint that picture. Mid-1950s Scotland.
Post-war Britain. Think about places like Birkenshaw, Uddingston. These tight-knit communities, often built around industry. Very close.
Where violent crime, especially something like a random home invasion, it just wasn't on people's radar.
Not at all. People genuinely felt safe. Doors might be left unlocked. There was a community trust there. Manuel didn't just commit murders, he shattered that trust, that fundamental sense of safety.
He introduced this random, pervasive fear, a monster from within the community almost.
Absolutely. And the justice system itself was, well, different. Capital punishment was still mandatory for murder.
And the investigative tools, pretty basic compared to today. Forensics were rudimentary.
Very much so. Police work relied heavily on things like eyewitness accounts, simple ballistics, and, crucially, getting a confession.
Which, as we'll see, Manuel knew how to exploit. That reliance on confessions, on witness testimony.
Oh, he played the system. He understood its weaknesses. Especially Scottish law, requiring corroboration, 2 independent pieces of evidence for every key point. He used that.
So our mission today, it's not just recounting what he did, but trying to understand the why. What drove him? And how did the system, struggle to catch him?
Precisely. It's the psychology, the audacity, and the societal context. That's the deep dive.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The origins of the beast, as they say. Because his background is unusual, isn't it? He wasn't born in Scotland.
No, that's a key point. Peter Thomas Anthony Manuel, born 1927 in New York City. His parents were Scottish, but they were abroad.
So an American birth? Did they stay there long?
Not really. They were quite transient. New York, then Detroit for a bit, then over to Coventry in England, before finally settling back in Birkenshaw, Lanarkshire, around 1932.
That's quite a journey for a young child. Rootless, almost.
It likely contributed to him feeling like an outsider. Some reports mention he had a bit of an American accent when they first came back, which apparently led to bullying.
And that kind of experience, it can fuel resentment, a need to assert control later on.
Exactly. And that need for control, it manifested really early in criminal behavior. Petty theft by age 10, known to the local police.
But it wasn't just theft, was it? It got serious very quickly.
Disturbingly quickly. By age 12, the records show not just theft, but indecent assault. That combination at such a young age, it's a major red flag.
And his attitude towards authority was clear even then. The Borstal escapes.
10 times he escaped from Borstal, the youth detention center, 10 separate times. Think about the sheer defiance in that. The absolute refusal to be contained. It foreshadows everything.
Which leads to that really significant sentence when he was just a teenager, 16 years old.
Yeah, a string of serious sexual assaults landed him a 9-year sentence. 9 years in Peterhead Prison, which was, a tough place.
Starting at 16, that's formative years spent locked away for serious, violent sexual offenses.
So when he gets released in 1953, he's not just some petty criminal. He's a hardened predator. Fully formed, really, and the community has no idea what's about to hit them.
And this is where his psychology becomes so fascinating and, frankly, terrifying. People noted his intelligence.
Above average intelligence, definitely. He could be articulate, even charming when he wanted to be. He wasn't, just some thug.
And he used his time inside constructively, in a twisted way.
He read constantly, but not just anything. Crime fiction, yes, but crucially, legal texts, law books. He was teaching himself the law.
Not to respect it, though, to beat it.
Exactly. It fed directly into this massive narcissistic grandiosity. He genuinely believed he was smarter than everyone, the police, the lawyers, the judges.
Pathological lying, zero empathy, this overwhelming need for control and dominance, often sexual sadism tied in.
The core profile. And people noticed something off about him. Contemporaries described his unsettling manner, sometimes mentioning his dead eyes, like the humanity was just absent.
And just before the killing spree starts, he gets this huge confidence boost, doesn't he? 1955. The rape charge.
Yes, he's charged with rape at Airdrie Sheriff Court. And what does he do? He sacks his lawyer and defends himself.
And wins. The charge is dismissed.
He outsmarted the system, in his eyes, used his self-taught legal knowledge, and walked free. You can only imagine what that did to his already inflated sense of invincibility.
He must have felt untouchable, returning to Birkenshaw not just as an ex-con, but as someone who beat the law at its own game.
And that arrogance, that feeling of being untouchable, is the spark that ignites the 2 years of terror that followed. He was ready.
And it didn't take long. January 1956, the first victim we know he targeted, Ann Nealons.
Yeah, this case is just tragic and also crucial because it was the moment they almost stopped him, right at the very beginning.
Tell us about Ann.
She was only 17. Manuel stalked her near the East Kilbride golf course. He raped her and then bludgeoned her to death with a piece of iron. Brutal, very hands-on.
Horrifying. But you said they nearly caught him.
They did. The police actually questioned Manuel shortly after the murder. He was, on their radar as a local criminal with a history.
So what happened? Why did they let him go?
His father, Samuel Manuel, gave him an alibi. Said Peter was home all night. And the police, perhaps lacking other strong leads, accepted the father's word.
One false alibi, and the killing continued. That's chilling.
It's a catastrophic what-if.
Yeah.
Manuel did confess to killing Anne later, in '58. But when it came to the trial for her murder specifically...
It was the only charge that didn't stick.
Right. The jury returned that unique Scottish verdict. Not proven. Basically meaning, we probably think you did it, but the Crown hasn't provided enough corroborated evidence to convict beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
That need for corroboration saved him on that count.
So he walks away from the Nealons questioning.
Okay.
And just 9 months later, September 1956, he escalates dramatically.
A Watt family massacre in Burnside. This was a different level entirely.
An entire family targeted in their home.
Marion Watt, her 16-year-old daughter Vivian, and Marion's sister Margaret Brown, all shot dead in their bungalow. It was messy, shocking, unprecedented for the area.
And the police investigation immediately went down the wrong path, didn't it?
Completely. They fixated on Marion's husband, William Watt.
But he wasn't even there, was he? He was miles away.
90 miles away, yeah.
Yeah?
On a fishing trip up near Ardrishaig, on Loch Fyne. He had a solid alibi, you'd think.
So how on earth did they build a case against him?
It was a combination of assumption and some really misleading circumstantial evidence. The police theory was that Watt faked a break-in at his own home, drove the 180-mile round trip overnight, killed his family, and got back to his fishing spot before anyone noticed.
That sounds incredibly far-fetched. What was the supposed motive?
Vague theories about infidelity, maybe insurance money, but nothing concrete ever emerged. It felt like they needed a motive to fit their suspect.
And they found witnesses who claimed they saw him making this impossible journey.
Bizarrely, yes. A ferryman thought he saw Watt crossing the Clyde. Another motorist claimed to have passed his car near Loch Lomond. These eyewitness accounts, in the absence of solid forensics, were given huge weight. Watt was arrested.
Arrested for murdering his family while he was supposedly 90 miles away.
Held in Barlinnie prison for 2 months. Police divers were even sent to search the Crinan Canal near his fishing spot for the murder weapon they were convinced he'd thrown away during this phantom drive.
Talk about tunnel vision. They were so sure it had to be the husband.
It's a common trap in homicide investigations. But here it was disastrous. They were desperate to solve this terrifying crime and calm public panic.
What finally broke their theory?
Logic, eventually.
Yeah.
Simple things like the petrol level in Watt's car. It hadn't dropped enough for a 180-mile drive. They even looked for hidden fuel cans, trying to make it fit.
But the real game changer wasn't proving Watt innocent, was it? It was Manuel striking again.
Exactly. The police were forced to rethink everything only when the next family massacre happened, the Smarts, in 1958. That's when the awful realization hit them. This wasn't a domestic murder gone wrong. There was a serial killer operating in Lanarkshire.
And the initial focus on Watt had given Manuel almost 1.5 years of breathing room.
Tragically, yes. And during Manuel's eventual trial, his defense actually tried to pin the Watt murders back onto William Watt. It just shows the chaos and confusion Manuel deliberately sowed.
So while the police are chasing their tails over William Watt, Peter Manuel is becoming bolder, more audacious. By December 1957, he even crosses the border.
Yeah, this is a significant escalation into just pure recklessness. He travels down to Newcastle upon Tyne in England, apparently looking for work.
And commits another murder there.
Yes, he encounters a taxi driver named Sidney Dunn. Manuel shoots him dead. The motive seems to have been simply to steal Dunn's taxi. Dunn's body was later found dumped on moorland over the border in County Durham.
And this murder really highlights the problems with policing back then, doesn't it? The different jurisdictions.
Absolutely. Because the crime happened in England, Manuel was never actually tried for Dunn's murder during his main trial in Scotland. The Scottish prosecutors focused on the murders committed within their jurisdiction, the ones they felt they could corroborate most easily.
So technically, he was never convicted of killing Sidney Dunn in his lifetime.
Correct. But it's a technicality. The evidence was strong. And here's a quite remarkable detail. 17 days after Manuel was executed in Glasgow.
After he was dead.
Yes, an English coroner's jury held an inquest into Sidney Dunn's death, and they concluded, based on the evidence presented, that Peter Manuel was the killer.
What was the key evidence?
A button. A button found in Dunn's taxi perfectly matched buttons on a jacket belonging to Manuel. Forensic science even then could make that link. That plus the MO killing for a vehicle made it pretty clear.
Were there any doubts at all?
Very slight ones. Some initial witness accounts of the man Dunn picked up mentioned an accent that wasn't clearly Scottish, maybe local Geordie, maybe Irish. But the physical evidence, the button, really overrides that. Most people accept Manuel killed Dunn.
Okay, so that's Newcastle, December 1957. But he doesn't lie low. He's back in Scotland almost immediately, isn't he?
Less than 3 weeks later, still December 1957, and another young woman disappears. Isabel Cook.
Tell us about Isabel.
She was 17, vanished after leaving her home in Uddingston to go to a Christmas dance at the local grammar school. Just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Another random victim.
It seems so. Purely opportunistic cruelty. Manuel stalked her, abducted her, raped, and strangled her.
What?
Then he buried her body in a field nearby. Her family searched frantically through Christmas and New Year, completely unaware.
The public fear must have been reaching fever pitch by now. 2 unsolved family massacres, Dunn murdered, Neelan's unsolved, now a teenager vanishes.
Panic was definitely setting in. But the connections weren't solid yet in the public mind, or even fully for the police. And then came the event that changed everything. New Year's Day, 1958.
The Smart family massacre.
Yes. Peter Smart, his wife Doris, and their young son, 11-year-old Michael. All shot dead in their home in Edleyton, likely in the early hours of New Year's Day. Hogmanay.
For Scots, Hogmanay's huge. A time for family, celebration. For this to happen then.
They added another layer of violation. Profound sacrilege on top of murder.
But what stands out about the Smart case, beyond the horrific killings themselves, is Manuel's behavior afterwards. It's detailed in the sources, and it's deeply disturbing.
It truly is. This gives us perhaps the clearest window into his psychology. He didn't just kill them and flee. He stayed in their house.
For how long?
For nearly a week, living there, with the bodies still in the house.
What was he doing?
Eating their Hogmanay leftovers.
Yeah.
He fed the family cat, slept in their beds, watched their television. He literally moved in and inhabited the space he'd created through murder.
That's not just concealing a crime. That's something else. Possession. Domination.
It's the ultimate act of narcissistic control, taken to a ritualistic level. He wasn't just satisfied with killing them. He needed to absorb their lives, live in their normality while surrounded by the carnage he'd caused. No sign of forced entry either. He likely just walked in, perhaps through an unlocked door, killed them, and made himself at home.
But this incredible arrogance, this belief he could do anything, ultimately led to his downfall, didn't it? He made mistakes at the Smart house.
2 crucial ones. First, he sold the Smart family car. He didn't keep it long, just dumped it nearby, but it was a link.
And the second mistake, the fatal one.
Money. Peter Smart had withdrawn cash just before Christmas. Brand new 5-pound notes, crisp from the bank, intended for a holiday. Manuel stole these notes, and crucially, because they were new, the bank had records of their serial numbers.
Traceable money. A classic criminal blunder, especially for someone who thought he was a mastermind.
It shows his impulsive need for gratification overriding his supposed cunning. And his arrogance didn't stop there. Even after the murders were discovered and the police investigation was in full swing.
He had that encounter with the police officer.
Unbelievable, isn't it? He's driving around in the stolen Smart car. He actually picks up a police officer who is part of the search team looking for Isabel Cook.
Picks up a cop, In the murdered family's car.
and then has the nerve to chat with him, telling the officer that the police were barking up the wrong tree, essentially, not looking in the right places for Isabel.
He's literally mocking the investigation while driving the evidence. The sheer gall is breathtaking.
Pathological grandiosity doesn't even cover it. He saw the police as fools, pieces in his game. But that stolen money was about to change the game entirely.
Right, so the Smart massacre happens, the bodies are discovered, the panic is absolute, the police are under immense pressure, especially after the Watt fiasco. How did they leverage that mistake with the banknotes?
That became the absolute priority, those traceable 5-pound notes. The police launched a massive operation, alerting every bank, shop, and particularly pubs across Glasgow and Lanarkshire. They circulated the serial numbers. Watch for these notes.
And Manuel, being Manuel, couldn't resist flashing the cash.
Exactly. Within days, he started spending those distinctive new fivers in several pubs in the East End of Glasgow, paying for rounds of drinks, showing off, basically.
And the publicans noticed.
They did. The alerts had gone out, a barman here, a pub owner there. They recognized the notes, realized who must have passed them, and contacted the police. Suddenly, the net tightened dramatically.
This must have been a huge relief for the police forces.
Immense. The Lanarkshire force was already stretched, so they brought in reinforcements from the Glasgow City CID. The fear was so widespread that the usual jurisdictional boundaries started to dissolve. They needed to catch this guy fast.
So they trace the notes back to Manuel, January 14th, 1958. They go to his parents' house in Birkenshaw.
Yes. They arrive with a warrant, not just for the Smart murders, but also for a separate housebreaking charge nearby. They were building the case.
What was the atmosphere like during the arrest?
Tense. According to reports, Manuel was asleep. They woke him up. When the police read the warrant to his father, Manuel apparently just exploded. Verbal abuse, shouting things like, "You haven't found anything yet, you can't take me."
Still defiant, still believing he was in control.
Right up until the end. But he did agree, eventually, to go with them to Bells Hill Police Station for questioning.
And that's where the infamous confession happens. But it wasn't a typical breakdown, was it?
Not at all. This is one of the most chilling aspects of the case. He confessed yes, but entirely on his own terms. It wasn't born out of remorse or guilt.
It was another performance.
Absolutely. A calculated strategy. He confessed to 8 murders, deliberately leaving out Sidney Dunn in England, likely because it was outside the main Scottish investigation. He controlled the narrative
How did he control it?
by providing specific, incriminating details that only the killer could possibly know. Things about the crime scenes, the victim's last moments. And crucially, he offered to lead the police to where he buried Isabel Cook.
Taking them right to her body.
Yes, providing that final, awful piece of the puzzle for her family, but doing it as if he were the expert guide, the one revealing the truth, not the cornered suspect.
It's pure narcissism. I'm so smart, I'll even help you solve the crimes I committed.
That's precisely the mindset. He wanted to be seen as the orchestrator, even in his capture. Officers involved in the interrogations were deeply disturbed. They described his tone as chillingly matter-of-fact when discussing the murders. No emotion, just cold, detached recitation of facts.
But even with this detailed, albeit manipulative, confession, they still needed corroboration for the trial, right, under Scottish law.
Yes, the confession was vital, but not sufficient on its own. The prosecution had to build a solid case around it.
What was the key corroborating evidence?
Several things came together. Ballistics was huge. They were able to link the same .38 Webley revolver to the Watt family murders, the Smart family murders, and potentially evidence from other scenes.
The gun tied multiple crimes together.
Exactly. Then there was the financial link, the traceable 5-pound notes from the Smart house spent by Manuel. Physical evidence, like the button from Dunn's taxi, although not part of the main trial, supported the overall picture. And finally, his confession itself contained knowledge only the killer would have, which corroborated the external evidence. By the time they went to trial, the case for 7 murders was incredibly strong.
The trial itself at the Glasgow High Court in 1958 must have been a media circus.
Oh, completely. It gripped the entire country. 15 days of testimony, huge public interest. Everyone wanted to see the beast of Birkenshaw.
And Manuel provided the ultimate courtroom drama, didn't he?
He did. In a move that just stunned everyone, halfway through the trial, he sacked his entire legal team, his Queen's Counsel, everyone.
And decided to defend himself.
Yes. Convinced, even then, that his self-taught legal knowledge was superior. He was literally betting his life on his own intellectual arrogance.
Was he any good? As his own lawyer?
Surprisingly, yes, in a technical sense. The judge, Lord Cameron, even commented on it. He admitted Manuel conducted his defense with a skill that is quite remarkable. He knew procedure, he could cross-examine witnesses effectively.
But technically skilled isn't the same as convincing a jury, especially when you're accused of multiple murders.
Precisely. He lacked any shred of humility or empathy. He came across as cold, calculating, terrifying. His actual defense theories were absurd. For the Smart killings, he tried to claim Peter Smart had murdered his own wife and child, then killed himself, and that Smart was actually a friend who'd given him keys to the house.
Which flew in the face of all the evidence.
Completely unbelievable. And then there was the moment William Watt was called to testify.
The man originally accused of killing his own family, that must have been incredibly dramatic.
Hugely dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Watt had recently been in an accident, so he had to be brought into the courtroom on a stretcher to give his evidence against Manuel. The visual was just devastating. The wrongly accused man, physically broken, testifying against the real killer. It underscored the whole tragic trajectory of the case.
So after 15 days of this high drama, Manuel's self-defense, Watt's testimony, how long did the jury take?
Given the complexity, 8 murder charges, it was remarkably quick. They deliberated for just 2 hours and 21 minutes.
A verdict.
Guilty. On 7 of the 8 counts, just as expected, the Ann Nealon's charge came back as not proven due to the corroboration issues we discussed.
And the sentence was automatic, wasn't it?
Mandatory death sentence.
Yeah.
And Manuel. Reports say he showed almost no reaction, still maintaining that icy composure, that mask of superiority even then.
He'd played his game and lost, but wouldn't show it.
Exactly. He went down fighting on his own terms, in his own mind.
Peter Manuel was hanged at HMP Barlinnie in Glasgow, July 11th, 1958. He was 31 years old. The executioner was Harry Allen.
A significant execution historically. He was the second to last man hanged at Barlinnie, and the third last in all of Scotland. Capital punishment wasn't abolished until the 1960s.
In his final words, they're almost as chilling as his crimes.
They really are. Sums up his entire persona. Reportedly, his last request was, turn up the radio and I'll go quietly.
Just mundane. Focused on his immediate comfort, even facing death. Incredible.
Total detachment. A final assertion of control over his environment. His notoriety lived on, of course. His waxwork figure was a grim attraction in Edinburgh for years.
But his case had a much bigger legacy, didn't it, in terms of policing?
A huge legacy. The way he operated across different police force boundaries, Lanarkshire, Glasgow, even crossing into England, exposed the massive flaws in communication and coordination between forces at the time.
The failure to connect the dots quicker.
Precisely. The investigation struggles became a major catalyst for reform. It added significant weight to the arguments for creating a unified national police force for Scotland, which finally happened much later in 2013. His crimes, tragically, helped shape modern policing structures.
So the trial ended, Manuel was executed, legal finality was achieved, but the impact, the psychological scars he left on Scotland, particularly Lanarkshire, they lasted much longer.
Oh, absolutely. The deepest impact was on that fundamental sense of community trust. Before Manuel, people genuinely believed this kind of random, brutal violence couldn't happen in their town, in their home.
He proved them wrong in the most horrific way.
He showed that the monster could be living next door. That safety was an illusion. You saw immediate changes, people installing locks for the first time, being more wary of strangers, keeping their children closer. A tangible layer of fear descended.
And there are still lingering questions, controversies surrounding the case, aren't there? Starting with the victims he wasn't convicted for.
And Nealon's, primarily. Police and investigators remained convinced of his guilt, but the legal requirement for corroboration meant a not proven verdict. It's that gap between moral certainty and legal proof. And Sidney Dunn in Newcastle, linked by evidence, confirmed by an inquest after his death, but not part of his Scottish conviction tally. His true victim count is almost certainly higher than 7.
Then there's the incredibly difficult question of his parents, Samuel and Bridget.
Yeah, that's a really troubling aspect. They provided him with that crucial false alibi for the Nealon's murder. After his final arrest, police found stolen goods, even a gun, hidden in their house.
So the question is unavoidable. How much did they know? Were they just terrified, manipulated victims of their own son? Or were they, consciously or unconsciously, enabling him, shielding him?
It's impossible to know for sure. They were never charged in relation to the murders themselves. But their actions certainly raise uncomfortable questions about family loyalty versus civic duty when confronted with such evil.
And the police conduct during the interrogation that led to the confession for scrutiny, right?
It did. Manuel's defense team argued coercion, Undue psychological pressure. While the confession was ultimately deemed admissible by the court, the arguments highlighted the lack of strict procedural safeguards back then.
No recorded interviews, no mandatory breaks, or immediate access to lawyers like today.
Exactly. It was a different era. While the police were desperate to stop a killer, the methods used left room for these kinds of allegations, which cast a slight shadow even over the valid confession.
Thinking about it now, if Manuel were operating today with modern technology,
He wouldn't have stood a chance. Not for long, anyway. DNA would have nailed him for Nealons and Cook immediately. Not proven ambiguity there.
and staying in the smart house for a week,
He'd have left a mountain of forensic evidence.
yeah.
DNA, fibers, fingerprints everywhere. Plus, think about digital forensics. CCTV, cell phone tracking, electronic financial transactions. His movements would have been mapped instantly. His reign of terror was only possible because of the limitations of mid-20th century investigation.
So in the end, despite his intelligence, his manipulation, his belief he was superior, he was brought down by a very simple, almost mundane error.
Stealing those brand new, traceable banknotes. His own arrogance, his need for immediate gratification, was his undoing. It wasn't some brilliant psychological profiling that caught him. It was old-fashioned police work following the money.
It proves that even the most manipulative minds can't control every detail. The evidence eventually catches up.
Absolutely. His case is a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity, but also a testament to the fact that meticulous investigation, even with limited tools, can bring even the most audacious killers to justice. The system failed initially, perhaps, to grasp the pattern, but once the break came, it closed in relentlessly.
Which leads us to that final thought, something for you, our listeners, to consider. We know Scottish law demands strict corroboration, which arguably hampered the Nealons conviction. We know the system struggled initially to connect the dots between jurisdictions, so the question is, did the very process of building legally watertight cases for the murders Manuel was eventually convicted of inadvertently allow him the time and space to commit more? Was the system, in its necessary diligence, too slow to recognize and react to the escalating threat of a true serial predator in its midst?
It's a heavy question. Manuel's case is a stark lesson not just in criminal psychology, but in the complexities and potential pitfalls of the justice system itself when confronted with something truly monstrous. His shadow looms large over Scottish criminal history for a reason.
Okay, so we hope you liked our today's discussion. For more such discussions, subscribe to our channel, Phantom Homicide.